Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers! There are massive spoilers in this video! I have played video games basically my entire life. They are my preferred method of storytelling for sure. I view some games a little like art and some I appreciate for their mechanics or gameplay loop. Regardless of what appeals to me about a game, there can be an exceptional moment in it. I know the title is long, I try to condense it while still doing it justice. This is my little opinion piece, moments in video games that I wish I could experience again for the first time. Obviously, this list is personal and in no way comprehensive. In fact, I am super interested to know if we share any of these, or if you have your own meaningful experiences. If you do, please leave a comment, or heck, make your own video. That would be mega cool. Presented in no particular order. Final Fantasy VII was my introduction to the Final Fantasy series, RPGs and video games. There is a possibility that it was the first video game I ever played. From the outset, the scale of Midgar is demonstrated. The opening pre-rendered cutscene shows the decadent majesty of the metropolis. After that, the player is treated to experience after experience in the city-state. There are so many people to talk to, there are so many bizarre monsters to fight. Midgar has more content than some entire PS1 games. I don't want to overstate it, but I also need to give Midgar its due. This place is huge. At the time, I would not have been surprised if the whole game happened in Midgar, a premise that was revisited in Final Fantasy VII Remake. But then you are framed for killing President Shinra, and it seems like your best option is to leave. Wait, what is Final Fantasy VII without Midgar? Is the game going to end? It would be reasonable. What would be on the other two discs? The screen goes black. Why is Cloud small? Is that Midgar? Why is it small now? That thing is enormous. Mountains? Grass? Ocean? There's more? That is when you find out there is a whole world of Final Fantasy VII. You get to have that amazing experience again, but not in one city. The entire world is yours to explore. As this was one of, if not the first video game that I played, I was completely unaware of the concept of a world map. I had no preconceived notion that I would start in one town and leave into the world map, as is common in earlier Final Fantasy games. It happens in the first few minutes of the original Final Fantasy. There is also the possibility that Square could have changed the way they handled traversing the world when switching to 3D. The world map became a menu in Final Fantasy X, so it would be totally reasonable. Either way, this was totally mind-blowing. I had a hiatus from video games for the better part of 4 years. I jumped back in when I got a Nintendo Switch in 2018. It was possible to see all the software available on the eShop at the time, and there was something different about Enter the Gungeon that was inexplicably appealing. When I started, Enter the Gungeon was hard. Progress was slow, but the longer I spent with the game, the more progress I made. I remember that I would give regular updates to my wife and would say things like, "I made it to level 4 today," or "I got to the level 2 boss, but died." It was fun. In a way, progress was measurable, and that was reassuring. When you are learning a new skill, it can feel difficult to feel the progress, because more complicated skills require so much time there can be a disconnect between progress and the feel of progress. Video games offer a nice middle ground from that perspective. You actually get to feel yourself getting better. After a few, or many, hours of practice, you get so good that you beat the game. Often, the last boss is a step up in difficulty too, so overcoming that last hurdle feels especially rewarding. It feels that way in Enter the Gungeon and Dead Cells, for sure. When you beat the boss, you get to find out that you can make the game more difficult for yourself. After a while, you can consistently beat that boss that was giving you so much trouble when you were learning. I'm looking at you, Amokonda! Beating roguelikes gives me a high that I have been chasing since 2018. I recommend the following roguelikes: Enter the Gungeon, Dead Cells, Astral Ascent, Hades, and Hades 2. As far as I'm concerned, these are the cream of the crop. Nowadays, shiny Pokemon are synonymous with normal Pokemon. Back in my day, it was a real challenge to encounter a shiny Pokemon. The odds were 1 in 8,192. By the time I played Pokemon Pearl, I had beaten Pokemon Emerald. I had played Pokemon Gold too, but had not finished it. That may account for my lack of knowledge of shiny Pokemon. I was aware of the red Gyarados, but since no other Pokemon of distinct colours were making themselves known, it was just as likely that red Gyarados was unique. I believe there were some shiny Pokemon in the TV show and TCG too, but for whatever reason, I was removed from those. The point I am trying to make is that I had played at least one complete playthrough of a Pokemon game with experience in another and was completely blindsided by the appearance of a blue Psyduck. In a way, this section of the video could be summarized by repeating the words, "Why is that Psyduck blue?" What amplified the mystery is that I did not catch that blue Psyduck. I tried, believe me. I specifically used a Fire-type move because it would be not very effective, and hoped it would deal the necessary amount of damage to make the Psyduck easier to catch. There were more stakes when catching Pokemon in the past too. I still remember it vividly. My heart was racing, my breath irregular, my plan was near perfect, wasn't it? Then the worst timed crit in the history of crits. I lost that blue Psyduck. This moment would not have made nearly as big an impact on me had I caught that flipping Psyduck. I would have found out that it was shiny and what shiny Pokemon were and felt very lucky. However, that day would not come for some time, and until then I would remain utterly mystified. My journey through Hallownest was a turbulent one. Had you asked me 5 to 6 hours into my time with the game, I would have told you that Hollow Knight was too difficult and uninteresting. My opinion looked like those narrow-minded negative reviews that you can make fun of on Steam. One of my biggest grievances with Hollow Knight was the lack of direction. Having played and adored Metroid for years, that may come as a surprise. For me, the biggest difference between Hollow Knight and Metroid was that I had finished Metroid at least once. I have since grown up and accepted the fact that the first playthrough of any Metroidvania, especially without any guides, will be frustrating for similar reasons. As a child, spending hours in a video game doing nothing in particular was fun. As someone with a little more responsibility, having no direction and being lost can be challenging. In short, I made it to the City of Tears in what I believe to be an unconventional way. I had also been to many other areas of the game, so had experienced Hallownest in a way that I have not done since. Despite understanding the current state of Hallownest, the City of Tears made a big impact on me. It was clear that there was something amiss all throughout Hallownest. However, there was also plausible deniability that it had always been that way. The City of Tears made it very clear that something had gone terribly wrong. There are other settlements in Hallownest, but they appear small or sparsely populated. The bugs that made the city their home probably viewed it as a wellspring of sentience and their best chance for survival. Little did they know their lives and livelihoods would be jeopardized by the spreading infection. The thing that really drives this home for me is the music that accompanies the city. It echoes the city's persona perfectly. The best way I can describe it is hauntingly beautiful. Imagine it is 2010. Imagine Valve still developed games. Imagine Team Fortress 2 before the competitive update. Imagine never having played a mouse and keyboard shooter before. That was me. I got a gaming PC around 2010 and was drawn, again inexplicably, to Team Fortress 2. It would be a laughable understatement to say that I was bad at that game. I lost horribly over and over again for hours. In another move that defied any explanation, I decided to play the game, even though I was terrible at it, which I was. Something rare about Team Fortress 2 is that it is easy to have fun even when losing. That is why I kept playing. After a while, I stopped sucking. A long time after that, my skill at the game might have even been described as passable. I remember sometime in 2013, a friend of mine was at university and he was thinking about starting a competitive Team Fortress 2 team with some of his friends there. I wasn't at university, but I had plenty of experience with the game, so I hopped in a server with them. I went medic because I wanted to show that I was helpful. I absolutely wrecked them with the crossbow. That is when I realized I might actually be sort of good at Team Fortress 2. Here is a screenshot I took at a similar time. I went from being an abysmal failure to consistently helping my team and having an impact on the objective. This was reflected in the frequency of my appearances on the list of top 3 scorers at the end of the round. I know the wing cap exists. This is way cooler.
Get shot out of a cannon, not high enough. Climb a massive tower, not high enough. Mount a chain link fence, not high enough. Grappler's hook on to sit, not high enough. Grab a hawk on the pole, not high enough. Yo, I think that's high enough.
Run.
How do I even start to describe Eris? For the purposes of this video, I'm going to insist that her name is Eris. Effortlessly charming, beloved by her community, born from tragedy, devout defender of Gaia. There is nothing that Eris has ever done that I do not like. Every moment spent with Eris is an absolute delight. Her actions and involvement in the story really give Final Fantasy VII meaning. Sure, the world is in danger, but it all hinges on one likeable woman, and I think that is what makes Final Fantasy VII such a memorable masterpiece. I am certain that if Sephiroth had not killed Eris, he would not be regarded as one of the best villains of all time. There is a very interesting dichotomy here. Eris is the kind defender of the planet, while Sephiroth is her antithesis. He is violent, unlikable, and views the planet's destruction as a stepping stone on his way to omnipotence. Anyway, Eris is killed by Sephiroth. It happens in a cutscene, and the player watches helplessly. The best character in all of media is mercilessly though it seems painlessly murdered. What makes this event even more impactful is that Eris stays dead. When I was experiencing this as a young child, I am sure I was screaming, "Phoenix down!" at the screen. I did not want Eris to die, and death had not seemed a problem in the story thus far. Eris's death sent shockwaves through all players of Final Fantasy VII. My first time through, and on several following attempts, I was haunted by the notion that I could bring her back. Heck, maybe there is some choice you can make before the temple to make sure she lives. Alas, there is not. Let her rest. I mentioned it before, and it probably won't be the last time, but it may have been because Final Fantasy VII was my introduction into video games, but I cannot forget this moment. At the end of the day, I am not totally sure how to express my feelings about this moment, but I do know that I feel a lot about it. That is why it is so hard. I have not played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth yet, but I think she dies in that too. When Wedge survived in Final Fantasy VII Remake, it seemed like it might be possible to save Eris in Rebirth. I am glad that Tetsuya Nomura had the balls to give one of the most impactful moments in video games its due. As I was preparing to make this video, I had not planned to analyse video game meta-commentary or provide insight on the state of the industry, but a strong pattern naturally emerged. I went into all of the experiences in this video totally blind. Some of them were moments enhanced by childlike wonder, and I will admit, tainted by the fog of nostalgia. That is not the case for the more recent entries, like Hollow Knight. I remember I bought the game because I thought it looked cool. That was it. It seems like it was much easier to do that in the past. There is a notable duality in knowing a video game is good and not knowing anything about it. Another old-fashioned phenomenon was that objectively good games were usually popular, and when a game was popular, there was usually a good reason that you knew about it. Nowadays, popular games are just popular because they are trendy, which is circular logic, and there seems to be no real reason for it. I think I remember when it started happening, but that is a topic for another video. As I was writing the script for this video, I was discussing some of these ideas with a colleague of mine. He is an avid gamer, and I found his philosophy on new releases to be particularly insightful. One phrase that he used that stuck with me in particular was, "You have to beat the streamers." It is extremely difficult to know nothing about a game before you buy it in the current technological landscape. My colleague's solution to this is to isolate himself from the media, buckle up, and play a new video game from beginning to end as quickly as possible. That appears to mostly solve the problem, but it is also like you are being held hostage by your hobby. Considering this, 2 camps for investing in a video game spontaneously materialize. In Camp 1, you know everything about a game before you invest and miss out on memorable, potentially deep personal moments like the ones I have described. And in Camp 2, you know nothing about it and similarly have no sincere experiences for a plethora of reasons. Because you did no research, it did not match your preferences and you did not jive with the game, which is totally understandable. The game was objectively bad, but you had no way of knowing. You find the art style offensive because it did not match the art on the box. I'm sure there are other reasons, but I think I have summarized the main ones. In my experience, there is an extremely fine line between these camps. Lamentably, I am in no position to provide a meaningful solution to this conundrum. It is a sad reality, but one that we can weather together. Sincerely, video game enjoyer, Lance Maverick.